Everyone, I'm in the summit of San Gorgonio Mountain here in Southern California. It's actually the highest point in Southern California. Right there, that's where it is. And this is a bit of a classic hike. You get great views. It's about 18, 19 miles, about 5,400 feet of climbing. It's a tough one, but definitely doable by lots of folks. You do need a permit, so go to HikingGuy.com where I have a corresponding article, and I'll have all the permit information, parking, tips on doing the hike, all of the logistics of it will be there, and I will keep that up to date if things change on the hike. But otherwise, in this video, I'll show you the turn-by-turn directions to hike up here and give you an idea of what it's like to experience. Now, if you're liking the video, if you could do me a big favor, click the little thumbs up. It's an easy way to say thank you for the video, and it helps other people find the video and hopefully know what to expect as well. So anyway, let's hit the trail.
All right, so there's a small parking area here at the Vivian Creek Trailhead, and the trail is just past this sign here, and we're actually going to go up an old road to start, and there's this little connector right from the parking area. We're just going to take this onto the road and follow the road up along Mill Creek, which is the massive creek off to the left. Now there's private property on either side here. There's cabins, and there's some like water tanks and stuff like that. We're just going to stay straight on this road and keep going up, and you'll see the private property is marked off pretty well, and there's signs pointing you in the right direction as a hiker. But the sign you're going to really look for is this one right here, and this is where we're going to cross over Mill Creek over to the left. This is the important one. If you don't take this, you're not going to hit the summit. We're just going to go right across the washed out creek here. Now you can see the trail is pretty well defined in here. I'd say it probably shifts a little bit every year once this floods, and if it's raining and flooding, it's going to be not crossable. But we're going to go across that point where I just pointed to over there. That's where the trail continues, and then we're going to climb up that little ridge over there to start our journey. Now, once you get to the other side, you'll see there is a sign that says trail. It's not too hard to spot. It can be hard sometimes earlier in the season. There's trail, and here's another sign telling you that in 1 mile, when we get to the San Gorgonio Wilderness, we're going to need a permit to hike in there. And if you go to the guide on HikingGuy.com, I have all of the permit information. I'm not going to go through that here, but the first mile or so up to that sign is probably the hardest on the whole hike. It's really, really steep, and it's a pretty massive wake-up call for your legs. You're going to just go up, up, up. And there's a couple switchbacks, and they don't really make it easier, but there are some flatter sections like this where you can get nice views over across to the other side of Mill Creek. The high peak on this little part there is called Little San Gorgonio on the other side of Mill Creek. We're going to keep going up, and after about a mile of climbing, you're going to come to the border of the San Gorgonio Wilderness. Now, if you don't have a permit, you're not supposed to hike past here, and you can see it tells you that there. But thankfully, you're going to get a break, and the next section is going to be pretty cruisy. It's not going to be nearly as steep as it was before. At this junction, that's Vivian Creek Camp. Up on the right, we're going to go left up towards the summit, and you're going to follow the banks of Vivian Creek up here. And sometimes there's water late in the summer, sometimes there isn't. There's a little log bridge here, but it's really scenic, mellow hiking at this point, and it's a great way to kind of catch your breath after that initial climb that's really, really hard. It's going to get steep again towards the end, but that's definitely one of the most steep sections that we just did. You can see as we hike up here, there's tons of old cedars and beautiful, beautiful forest that we can go up here. And it is uphill. If you look at the elevation profile, it looks like the same as the rest of it, but it definitely doesn't feel as steep as the rest of it. And you can see there's some meadows that we go through. It's really a nice scenic part of the hike. Now, the next landmark we're going to come to is the turnoff for Halfway Camp, which is down there. These are all primitive camps, as you'd probably imagine, just flat areas where you can camp and overnight. And that's not halfway to the summit. That's halfway, I think, to High Creek Camp. But after that, we're going to start climbing up a little bit. And it's not super steep. You can see there's switchbacks here as we go up. It's a pretty gradual uphill climb here. You can see some more switchbacks. If you do want to camp, you can do this as a 2 or 3 day or whatever hike here in the wilderness, and you need a permit for that. And if you look at the map on my guide on the website, I'll show you where the camps are, as well as some of the smaller dispersed camps and campsites where you can set up a tent. At one point, you're going to come around to the south face here, and you're going to be able to get some nice views across to Little San Gorgonio, across Mill Creek where we started. Also, Galena Peak is the high one that's a little bit farther up as we go along here, but really, really beautiful views. Here's one of those dispersed sites that I mentioned before. It's enough for 1 or 2 tents, but not a whole lot more. But you can certainly camp there as well, as long as you have a permit to camp here. Better to camp in a spot like that than to clear a new spot and damage some more wilderness. Now we're going to kind of loop around into the canyon where High Creek is, and we get nice views back across Mill Creek, which is back over there, and down. You'll probably be able to hear High Creek at this point, unless it's late summer and it's dry. But we're going to wind around here, and at this point we're almost to High Creek here as we go around, and you can see it gets level. And as we approach the campground, there are some flat areas and little use trails down to the creek. It says do not camp there. This area is protected for wildlife. It's kind of a sensitive habitat, and you'll see a lot of birds and animals and insects around there. But here we are at High Creek Camp, and there's some campsites. You can see them around the trail here, little dispersed sites. And there's a sign telling you that you are at High Creek Camp. And from here, we're going to go through the camp and then over another little feeder stream and then up, I don't know how many switchbacks, at least a dozen. Here's a little feeder stream right past the camp. High Creek was dry when I shot this, but that feeder stream had water in it. Usually Vivian Creek has water. There's just a couple places to get water, but otherwise we're going to continue up these switchbacks. Some people have a mental problem. There's a lot of them. They're kind of long. I find it pretty easy. I mean, it is uphill, so easy is relative, but you can see them winding up there. But I'd rather do these long switchbacks than go straight up the hill, which for me is a lot harder than cruising up the switchbacks. And as you go up here, you're going to see some markers up on the trees and also notches. Those are the old trail markers. They're high like that and notched. If you're hiking this in the snow, they're going to be hopefully above the snow line. And if there is snow and bad weather here, you don't want to do this hike, especially for the first time. And I'll talk about that in the guide. After the switchbacks, you're going to come up to this ridge, and the trail goes off to the left there, and you can see San Gorgonio up in the back. But there's a really neat viewpoint, which I recommend just checking out briefly. Over here, it's a good place to have a snack, too, and fuel up before the last little part to the summit. Straight ahead is San Jacinto, the other high peak across the pass there. But beautiful, beautiful views from this area. Now, in this shot, you're also going to recognize there's a bunch of burnt trees. This is from the 2020 apple fire, and the fire stopped right here on this ridge line. And as you hike in this little section, you're going to go through some of the fire damage. You can see some of it here. You can also see where it stopped as we go up. Now this next little section, there's San Gorgonio up there. This next little section is tough. There are little switchbacks, but you're basically going straight up this ridge line, and you're going to be at altitude here. You're almost at 10,000 feet, I think, at this point, and it's a tough one. You can see how slow I'm going here as I navigate these little switchbacks to go up this steep slope right here. Just take your time, take breaks, and pace yourself to get to the summit. And after a short while of this, you're going to get a little respite here. It levels out a little bit for a while, and the trees start to thin out as we go here. This is probably the last place you can really catch your breath before we get up to that ridge right up there and then cross over to the summit. We're just going to keep going straight, and eventually the trees will disappear and you'll have gone past the tree line, and it feels like you're hiking on the moonscape here as you hike up. And it's tough. It's uphill again, not quite as steep as the last section, but you'll get nice views all the way back to Saddleback Mountain right there in Orange County. We're going to keep on going up on this slope here. And again, take your time. You're going to probably feel the altitude, especially if you came from sea level at this point. You can see there's another dispersed campsite here. I marked a few of them on the map again, so if you do want to camp here, check out the map. There's some ideas on where you can camp, as well as official campgrounds that you can camp at as well on this trail. So we're going to continue up here, and eventually you're going to get to this junction with the divide trail. And if you go back to the left, you're going to go along the high peaks of the San Bernardinos back that way. Be careful on the way back too. It's easy to miss that turn and kind of go straight, in which case you will not be going down Vivian Creek. But from here, the gradient eases up a bit. And we're just going to keep going straight to the last little bit towards the summit here. Here's another trail junction. If you want to hike down towards Dollar Lake and South Fork, you can go down to the right, but that's not where we're going today. We're going straight up to the summit. And this last little stretch, maybe a half a mile from this point. When you climb a little hill, you're going to think it's the summit. There's a big pile of rocks on your right. It's a little false summit here. But once you get up to that pile of rocks, the next bigger pile of rocks, the biggest pile of rocks in Southern California, will be directly in front of you. And that is the peak area. Now, as you go on the stretch here, you'll see a little clearing down on the bottom there. That's the official summit campground area, and it's nice and protected and it's flat. But people also camp up at the summit as well. There's little stone shelters that act as windbreaks. You can see one straight ahead there. But when you get up to the summit, there's the Big Bear area, Sugarloaf Mountain off to the left. We're going to go up the rocks on the right to the actual summit, which is right here. Now, sometimes there's a sign here. This day, somebody had taken it home with them. There's a little flag marking the summit. There's a couple trail registers. And there's great sweeping panoramic views from up here. There's San Jacinto straight ahead. There's the trail where we came back. There you can see the trail. And then off to the north, you're going to be able to see the whole Big Bear area and Sugarloaf Mountain. And that's it.
So that's it. That's the hike. Definitely a Southern California classic. Now, remember, you need a permit to come here, so go check out the website before you come out here so you have the right permit for what you want to do. And if you stick around for a second, I'll show you what the hike looks like on a 3D map, and I'll also give you some tips on how to break it down mentally into chunks so that it's not so intimidating. And hopefully that'll help a little bit. But otherwise, guys, I'll see you out in the trails and the peaks. All right. Bye.
All right, so here we are. This is the start of the hike down here, and here's the summit, as you might have guessed by these 3D mountains here. Let's go on down to the start, and I'll show you how it goes. Now, this is the parking area. Here's that rocky dirt road that we hiked up. We crossed over Mill Creek, and then we have this really steep climb right here. And this is the one I pointed out when we're crossing the creek here. And again, it's tough. You can kind of see it almost goes straight up there. And I look at from the start to the end of that climb as the first chunk. It's definitely a discrete kind of part of the hike. It'll definitely wake you up as you get up there. And then from there, we're going to go up along Vivian Creek. And this definitely feels different. It's uphill, but it's not really steep. It's really cruisy. You can go through the little valley that Vivian Creek is carved out here. We're going to get to halfway camp, and then we're going to start climbing up this slope right here. And if I swing this around, you'll see, there we go. These were the peaks on the other side of Mill Creek. Little Gorgonio's back here, Galena up there. But you're going to see those as you come up along this portion of the climb. Let me swing us back. Then we come around the ridge and we get to High Creek Camp. So I look at that last section between the first climb and High Creek Camp as one discrete section. There is some climbing, but it's pretty mellow. The next little chunk that I break it into are these switchbacks, and these are the ones I said some people have a hard time dealing with. They kind of go on forever, but we're going to go all the way up to this ridge, and that's a little chunk that I break up as well. And then from the ridge, this is the ridge where I said there was a viewpoint and you can look out and see San Jacinto. Let me see if I can angle it up enough for us to see it. There it is over there. But this is Palm Springs down here. And then if we go back from here, let me just go ahead and zoom out. From here, we're going to follow the ridge all the way up. And I look at this as another section from the ridge all the way up to the tree line. And this is tough. These sections are a little bit smaller now. You might notice, but you have the altitude and it's steep. But we're going to climb all the way up to here and clear the tree line. And then from the tree line on up, I look at the last section here, the last mental chunk. So once I walk out of the trees, we go across this area right here. We're out of the trees. And then from here, we get up to the Peak Divide Trail. And this is actually a really cool trail. Let's go all the way to San Bernardino Peak, which is closed right now because of the fire, but hopefully it will be open. Maybe it'll be open by the time you watch this. And then here's the Sky High Trail right up here, which comes down there. And then we're almost at the summit. That was that flat area, that summit campsite that I mentioned. And then we get up to the summit up here on San Gorgonio Mountain. And that's the hike. You can see it right there again, but break it into those chunks. So parking lot to the wilderness sign, and then the relatively flat hike from the top of that climb all the way up to High Creek Camp. And then from High Creek Camp up to the ridge, from the ridge to the tree line, and then tree line to the summit. Those are the chunks that help me kind of break it out. And I just try to get from one to the next. And that seems to make it a little bit easier for me mentally. All right, guys, hope this was helpful. And leave me a comment if you have any questions. I'll see you out there.